Today, more than ever, women are being taught that the body's silence means something is wrong, emptiness, emotional failure, or a void. But what if that silence is not a void, but a beginning? What if that stillness is the soul's first whisper? When a woman, whether consciously or not, withdraws from the games of desire and the illusions of superficial affection, something far deeper begins to awaken within her. This is not absence, it is presence. Not a lack, but a quiet expansion. Carl Jung believed that all repressed energy finds another way to manifest. And when the body no longer chases immediate pleasure, the soul finally finds room to speak. Have you noticed how many women, after periods of abstinence, describe profound spiritual shifts? Vivid dreams, sharpened intuition, a strange but powerful sensitivity. That's not coincidence. That's a calling. When the body is no longer touched from the outside, it begins to turn inward. And in that forgotten space, a woman meets parts of herself she never knew existed, parts unseen by her and by anyone else. This is not merely about celibacy. It's about transmutation, about energy no longer chasing connection through others, but rising, cultivating itself from within. Society, rooted in constant sexual validation, fears a woman who chooses withdrawal, because she becomes untouchable, unpredictable, unknowable. She begins to see through the games, through emotional repetition, through the performative masks that bind more than they liberate. Jung would call this the meeting of the shadow, that sacred moment when a woman stops seeking to be chosen and instead begins to choose. She no longer loves in hopes of being loved. She loves herself with such intensity that anything superficial simply dissolves. There's a kind of silence that is not empty. It is a temple. And when the body grows still, it's often because the soul is preparing to ignite a light that disturbs. A woman without sex or relationships is not hollow. She may, in fact, be more alive than ever. What appears to be absence is actually overflowing presence. What looks like loneliness is a deep communion with something no lover could ever touch. This is where the wild woman archetype awakens. She reconnects with ancient wisdom, primal instinct, the feminine that does not need an audience. Can you feel that? That quiet pull? It's not a message for everyone. It's for the women who are done exchanging their essence for fleeting connection. It's for the ones who've realized what they seek cannot be found in anyone's bed, but only in an honest encounter with themselves. And if you've made it this far, you may already be closer to that path than you think. Yes, the body is silent, but that is not weakness. It is strength, turning inward. And once the soul begins to speak, nothing remains the same. A woman who has heard her soul will never again settle for the low hum of ordinary love.
There comes a time when the noise becomes unbearable. Not the world's noise, but the internal murmur of expectations, conditioned desires, and borrowed emotions. And from that invisible exhaustion, the return to herself begins. Jung said, everything we reject within returns as fate. So when a woman's body falls silent, it is not failure. It is the emergence of something deeper. The woman who starts withdrawing from her usual impulses without knowing exactly why is already hearing a calling, not from flesh, but from soul. She begins to feel a longing with no name, not for a man or a touch, but for a version of herself she hasn't met yet, but knows exists. Abstinence, then, is not punishment. It is a portal, and through that portal, she begins the journey Jung called individuation, a return to wholeness, a shedding of projections, a discovery of self. What first appears as emptiness is space being cleared for authenticity. And in that space, memories don't ache as wounds, but reveal themselves as clues to something greater. Past relationships, cyclical pain, tears shed in the dark. They all begin to make sense under new light, because the woman who embraces silence is not retreating from life. She is rewriting her story from a deeper place. She no longer chases applause or the validation of desire. She discovers that her worth was never in how much her body was wanted, but in how deeply she can hold herself in stillness. And here, something almost mystical is born, the power of a woman who no longer needs to be chosen. This is where the world starts to fear her, because society doesn't know what to do with someone who's done begging for love. She becomes whole, and wholeness is dangerous to everything still fractured. When she realizes her energy is not dormant, just refined, she enters a new state of being, one without urgency, without the need to prove, because the silence of the body is not a prison, it's a language, and only those who dare to dwell in their depths can understand it. Jung would call this a reconciliation with the feminine unconscious, a reunion with ancient symbols buried under centuries of suppression. And that union doesn't speak through words. It speaks through presence. That woman is just beginning to rise, but the path is not gentle. She'll feel unease, a haunting discomfort, as if she no longer belongs. She steps away from desire, from touch, from the known, and finds herself invisible. Society screams, time is short, be wanted, be seen, be desired. But suddenly, she is none of those things. Not a lover, not a wife, not a muse, not a girlfriend. She is just herself, and that can feel more.
But she is not isolating. She is immersing. And not everyone can handle watching someone dive so deep while the rest float on the surface. Jung saw this as an essential stage of individuation. The ego panics, losing control, while the soul takes the lead. It is in this quiet despair that many give up, choosing comfort over depth, accepting lukewarm love, settling for something rather than risking nothing. But the woman who stays, through doubt, through tears, is being shaped. She is being called to break the cycle. And cycles aren't broken with force. They break through awareness. The tension she feels is not error. It is transformation. The cocoon tightens before the butterfly breaks free. That is what's happening. A new self is being born in the dark. She may not yet understand it. She may feel alone, misunderstood, too deep for this world, but a quiet voice remains. It doesn't shout. It simply stays. That presence, subtle, constant, is the archetypal feminine. Jung's bridge between consciousness and mystery. And as she listens, as the dialogue with her depths unfolds, she sees the truth. Her body is not on pause. It is in ritual, a forgotten ritual, but one her soul never forgot. And slowly, everything begins to change. Restlessness turns to reflection. She starts asking deeper questions. Why did I always need to feel desired, to feel alive? Why is being alone so unbearable? What part of me still needs to be seen by others to exist? Because the woman who chooses silence is not disappearing. She is reappearing on her own terms. And her journey is no longer outward. It is inward. Deeper than desire, stronger than approval. And once she hears her soul's voice, she can never again be satisfied by anything less. If this spoke to you, subscribe to Stoic Trench. Walk the path of wisdom with us.